I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Rick Santorum may be out of the 2012 race, but did his candidacy provide a lasting spark to the GOP? Plus, looking locally to fix the global economy.
Hopefully we can develop a global consciousness of what is happening in our world really is important, that we really need to pay attention to.
And the global becomes local as the Diocese helps immigrants in need.
Our immigration services help people to adjust their status, to reunite with family members, to obtain political asylum.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Well, the timing was a bit of a surprise. However, the news was expected. Yesterday, former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum announced he is suspending his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination, a move that leaves the campaign trail wide open for GOP frontrunner Mitt Romney. Now, by most accounts, Santorum had proved to be the fiercest challenger to Romney's claim on that nomination. In recent weeks, though, he was painfully outmatched in money and organization. Not to mention, it would have been nearly impossible for Santorum to accumulate the 1,144 delegates needed to secure that nomination. Santorum broke the news during a press conference at a stop in his home state of Pennsylvania, saying he made the difficult decision after a weekend in which he tended to his 3-year-old daughter Bella. The youngest Santorum, who had been hospitalized with pneumonia, has a life-threatening genetic disorder. Now, earlier today, I spoke with one of Rick Santorum's biggest supporters in order to get a sense of what exactly fueled his decision to bow out of the race. Joshua Mercer is the communications director of CatholicVote.org. The organization endorsed Santorum earlier this year, and as I learned today, they remain staunch supporters of the man who defied so many odds. Well, Josh, Catholic Vote made its first presidential endorsement with Rick Santorum. What was it about this particular candidate that earned him your vote of confidence?
Well, Rick Santorum has long time been a leader on the issues we really care a lot about: life, faith, and family. And he brought with in this campaign a new message, not only talking about the dignity of human life, but also really focusing on families and how we need to get good paying jobs for families. And he had a pretty good tax plan and manufacturing plan as well. So we thought he was a well-rounded candidate.
Well, by all accounts, Rick Santorum actually put up a very respectable fight. I mean, he was popular with women, especially conservative women. He was popular with Catholic voters, evangelical voters. He had well-rounded appeal. In the end, was he just outfunded, outmanned? Was he just feeling the heat of the Romney campaign?
Yeah, it was a situation where Mitt Romney was a fundraising machine, and he was able to outspend all of his rivals. Practically a 10-to-1 advantage. So it was definitely uphill climb, but he did. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He did as good as anyone could have possibly done with as little amount of money as he did.
And that seems to be the general consensus, Josh. And now I have to mention Mitt Romney did weigh in after Rick Santorum suspended the campaign, saying that Senator Santorum is an able and worthy competitor, and I congratulate him on the campaign that he ran. He said that he has proven himself to be an important voice in our party and in the nation. In your opinion, is that a veiled invitation to possibly join him in August?
To join the ticket, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's very gracious words. I do ultimately think that Mitt Romney is going to probably pick a different running mate. I mean, I think the chances of him picking Santorum are pretty low. You know, everyone talks about Marco Rubio, but I think maybe like Senator from Ohio, Rob Portman, would probably be Mitt Romney's top pick. He helped him win the state of Ohio, which really, you know, right after Michigan, helped really put Mitt Romney in the driver's seat in terms of getting the nomination. So I think it's unlikely he'll be the running mate.
And Josh, you mentioned your appreciation for Santorum's commitment to life, faith, and family. And we know that Santorum family's youngest daughter is very ill, a little fighter, but still in need of constant care. How much of a role did that play in the decision, do you think?
I mean, I think there's definitely, you know, 3 major factors. You know, everyone talks about obviously the fact that if Santorum lost his home state of Pennsylvania in the primary coming up in 2 weeks, that would be very embarrassing. I do think that's a factor. I also do think the fact that he would need to win something like 75% of the remaining delegates. In other words, the climb at this point is so uphill, it was really tough. But I really do, I believe him that His daughter Bella, her condition really weighed. The fact that she was hospitalized twice over the last few months. She's, as you know, most people who have trisomy, I think it's 18, don't last past their first year, and this sweet little Bella has lasted over 3 years. The question is, should he invest the next 4 months of his life in a very difficult struggle with long odds, or should he spend those months with his daughter? And you know what? I think every person, every Catholic needs to put God first, then their family, then their country. You love all three, but you got to make sure you have your priorities straight. And I applaud him for his decision. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And I do agree with you that he did seem very sincere when he did speak of his daughter Bella. In a final word, Josh, how did Santorum define this race for the nomination? What mark did he leave personally, in your opinion, that you think he'll be most remembered for?
Well, I think there's two things. The one he'll be most remembered for is, of course, that pro-life voters, the issue of the pro-life message, the pro-marriage message, remains a winning message. It remains a message that invigorates people, it gets them to vote. The general election nominee, in this case it's going to be Romney, would do well to make sure he emphasizes those issues. And he cannot just walk away from them. That doesn't mean he has to say it every day, but he really has to make sure he brings them up. They're winning issues. They get people to come out and they get to vote. The other thing, too, is I applaud Rick Santorum that his economic message wasn't just, we need to lower taxes. We need to lower taxes. You know what? I think taxes are too high. I think every American thinks that. But he talks about manufacturing, and he talks about, making the tax code more pro-family, these kind of things, having good jobs right here in America. Mm-hmm. That's also a good message. I mean, I think Republicans just can't be Johnny One-Note. They can't be monotone on economics. They need to speak about it like Rick Santorum was speaking about it, how it affects families.
Thank you, Josh. That's the final word. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thanks so much.
Now, the remaining GOP candidates, Newt Gingrich and Ron Paul, have vowed to stay in the race until the end, despite having little money and fewer primary wins and delegates than even Santorum. Coming up, a new report from U.S. bishops on sex abuse by clergy. That and more after this quick break. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. Later on in the show, we'll look at how the Brooklyn Diocese is helping the city's immigrant communities. Before we get to that, a look at the day's top headlines. We are okay. That's what a bishop in Indonesia says after a magnitude 8.6 earthquake struck off the coast of the island of Sumatra this afternoon. A second quake with a magnitude of 8.2 struck just 2 hours later. Now, there were no immediate reports of damage or deaths, but many people played it safe and exited buildings in areas where the quakes were felt. An expert with the Seismology Research Center in Melbourne, Australia, says the quake happened a long way offshore and was unlikely to have caused much damage. A tsunami watch was issued for the Indian Ocean, but later canceled. A bishop in one of the affected areas told Asia News, quote, "We are okay despite a strong tremor felt here." Now, in other news, an audit by the U.S. Bishops' Conference shows there were 7 credible allegations of abuse against Catholic clergy in 2010 and 2011. The report by the Bishop's Secretariat of Child and Youth Protection showed that there were close to 600 complaints during that period. Now, a vast majority of alleged incidents took place between 1960 and 1984. The report also showed that most dioceses are in compliance with the Bishop's Charter for Protection of Children and Young People. In a preface to the report, Bishops' Conference President Cardinal Timothy Dolan says that the Church must continue to be vigilant. Well, the bishops of the Seattle Archdiocese are asking parishes to gather signatures for a referendum to repeal same-sex marriage. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer reports that information on the measure was sent to pastors throughout the Archdiocese. Earlier this year, Washington Governor Christine Gregoire, a Catholic, signed same-sex marriage into law. Seattle's bishops say that the word marriage is not just a label that can be attached to different types of relationships. From the United Kingdom, the head of the Catholic Church there says there is no need to legalize same-sex marriage in the region. Westminster Archbishop Vincent Nichols tells Sky News that the definition of marriage has wide-ranging implications.
We wish, as it were, to reserve that special place in the law for marriage as the basis of family life, providing the best context for the upbringing of children, and that's what best serves society. I don't really see the need to change that definition when there are civil partnerships available which have full public recognition. My major concern is to speak up for marriage, is to say it is a very important institution for the stability of society.
Nichols goes on to say that many people, quote, don't understand why UK Prime Minister David Cameron is pushing for the legalization of same-sex marriage. The Archbishop says marriage between a man and a woman has served society very well. Back in the U.S., a congressman says his Catholic faith helped him shape his budget plan. In an interview scheduled to air tomorrow on the Christian Broadcasting Network, Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan says he believes in the principle of subsidiarity. A government that is closest to the people governs best. Ryan says the preferential option for the poor means don't keep people poor. Back in 2009, Ryan introduced his plan as an alternative to the 2010 federal budget that included lowering the top tax rate and imposing a 5-year freeze on all discretionary spending. A revised version of the plan passed in the House last year but died in the Senate. Catholic University of America reaches a major milestone. The school, which is the only institute of higher education in the U.S. founded by the bishops, is celebrating its 125th anniversary. Catholic News Agency reports Pope Benedict sent cordial good wishes to Washington's Cardinal Donald Wuerl to mark the occasion. In a letter, Pope Benedict says he prays the anniversary will be an opportunity of renewed commitment to serve the Church and society. 11 Christian groups at Vanderbilt University are joining together to oppose the school's controversial non-discrimination policy. Under the rule, organizations cannot choose their leaders on the basis of religion. Now, according to Religion News Service, the Christian groups say students who do not share or profess their faith cannot lead them. Earlier this month, the campus group Vanderbilt Catholic announced it would move off campus rather than comply with that policy. The group says the school has now ordered it to drop the word Vanderbilt from its name. While Pope Benedict reflects on the resurrection in his Easter week general audience, and Rome Reports has those details.
More than 25,000 people visited St. Peter's Square to hear Benedict XVI's general audience. The Pope actually took a break from his vacation to lead the first general audience after Holy Week. The Pope talked about the moment Jesus appeared before his disciples after his resurrection.
When the risen Lord appeared to the disciples in the upper room and showed them his saving warmth, their lives were changed. With the gift of the Holy Spirit, Christ gave them the peace which the world cannot give, and sends them forth to bring that peace to the world.
He went on to explain that peace felt by the apostles is extended as hope in the everyday lives of people.
During this Easter season, let us resolve to walk in the company of the risen Christ and allow our lives to be transformed by faith in him and by the power of his resurrection.
And through Mass and the Gospel, the Pope said one can find the risen Christ every day of the year.
Like the disciples on the way to Emmaus, may we recognize his presence among us in his word and in the breaking of the bread.
Among the thousands of people gathered in St. Peter's Square, there was also this unique group of musicians who, dressed in traditional clothing, played a song for the Pope. After the general audience, Benedict XVI returned to Castel Gandolfo by helicopter to continue his vacation for a few more days.
Elsewhere, despite conflict in Syria, the head of the Franciscans in the region says he is against foreign intervention. The Franciscan custodian of the Holy Land tells aid to the church in need that the West should apply diplomatic and political pressure but avoid the use of military force. The priest says Christians in Syria are caught between the government and a fragmented opposition. And finally, the only Puerto Rican to be elevated to the College of Cardinals has died. Cardinal Luis Aponte Martinez died on Monday, just a day short of the 62nd anniversary of his ordination. He was 89 years old. Aponte Martinez founded the Puerto Rican Bishops' Conference and served as its president. He also served as Archbishop of San Juan for more than 44 years before retiring in 1999. He was the second cardinal to die in less than a week. Cardinal Ignatius Musa Dawood died on Holy Saturday. Cardinal Dawood was the former patriarch of the Syriac Catholic Church and the head of the Vatican's Congregation for Eastern Churches. Well, stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Money matters, but does the economy need a prayer?
Is that our prayer, our liturgy is not effective or transforming unless we live it out.
Welcome back. In its latest Beige Book report, the Federal Reserve says economic activity in its 12 districts expanded from mid-February through April 2nd. And what may be a positive sign, the survey showed that hiring remained steady in most of the U.S. That finding flies in the face of Labor Department data showing a slower hiring pace in March. But does the health of the global economy depend on what we do here locally? It does if you ask one group of Catholics who recently sponsored a talk on how what we do locally affects the world economy.
One of the basic ways that we can heal the world is simply by being loving.
This evening, the Sacred Heart Justice and Peace Committee is presenting a talk given by Sister Lucienne Sears, and the title of the talk is Global Economies, Local Realities. Sister Lucienne Sears is the director of the Partnership for Global Justice, which is a non-governmental organization at the United Nations.
We as Christians need to have both feet, the charity to address immediate acts and also the justice foot. Now, not everybody can do all of those all at once, so we need certain groups that do the charity work and certain groups that address justice. What we're going to talk about is making our connections, what we do and how we act in this part of the globe. It also affects other parts of the world, so we want to just pay attention to that, and hopefully we can develop a global consciousness of what is happening in our world really is important, that we really need to pay attention to. Eco-imperialism, that we are out of balance with Earth, that we consume too much, and our country probably is worst of all of the countries in the world about using the resources, natural resources. We, as a human family, have to kind of identify the things that we struggle with, avoidable harm, the great global apartheid, the great divide between the rich and the poor, how we treat the environment, and then figure out how we can respond to these huge, huge issues. And we can do that in the ways we live, the ways we organize our churches, the way we organize our cities. And the more we understand that, the easier it is for us to change how we do things. The sacramental principle, and certainly God can transcend anything, but as we understand the sacramental principle, is that our prayer, our liturgy is not effective or transforming unless we live it out.
She was able to show the deep connection between social justice and charity for us as Catholics. And that our tradition is, of course, we're very good at doing charity, but sometimes we're not as good at doing social justice.
I'm really grateful that they had this symposium, because it enables me, and I hope the rest of these listeners too, to be more conscious of the injustice all over the world.
May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that we may work for economic justice for all people. Amen.
Amen. There's more Currents coming up. Many questions, and the church has answers for immigrants in Brooklyn and Queens.
They do have a voice. They're not alone. That the church is here to assist, to help. That Catholic Migration Services will do what we can. But it's a partnership.
Bishops in Nebraska are praising their state legislature over its decision to restore funding for prenatal care. The measure would use taxpayer dollars to pay for prenatal care for low-income mothers, many of whom are undocumented immigrants. In a statement, Omaha Archbishop George Lucas thanked the legislators who supported the bill. He says unborn children should not be denied the care they need based on the immigration status of their mothers. The victory, though, may be short-lived. Governor Dave Heineman has promised to veto the legislation. Now, closer to home, Brooklyn is known as the city of immigrants, and over the years, the church has been there as people from around the world make a new home here. The Diocese Migration Office has been there for the city's immigrant communities for more than 40 years, and a couple of weeks ago, the office sponsored a community meeting in Woodside, Queens.
So tonight is really, I think, illustrates what this coalition is about, which is both connecting to services that we need, working together collectively to make some change, right? To fight against these things together.
Well, we're gathering this evening at the Parish Center of St. Sebastian's and the Catholic Migration Office in conjunction with a number of other nonprofits are really trying to bring people together to assist them, to help them know what their rights are, to help them know what the church can do in terms of what Catholic migration can do, what the church is doing, welcoming the immigrants, trying to assist them, trying to empower them.
We're very focused on community organizing, so instead of the traditional sit down between one client and one lawyer at a desk discussing an issue, we bring together a group of people who all have similar issues, and there's a certain power in that collectivization.
Well, I think the benefits for individuals can really be transformative. Our immigration services help people to adjust their status, to reunite with family members, to obtain political asylum. Our employment legal services, where we help low-wage immigrant workers to get their earned but unpaid wages. Our housing work, where we help people to live in decent, affordable housing. All of these are really critical services for the communities that we work in.
But now, if you have trouble, if you fall behind on a loan and or for whatever reason, you have damaged credit, now we see it harming people even more in more areas of life. More employers, people who are hiring, check your credit when you apply for a job.
These folks have been organized and active in fighting for their own rights around housing issues. The organizers of this meeting would like to teach them about other types of campaigns that are going on that might affect them.
I think it's incredible, that I not only go to church, but there's also the Catholic Migration Office that could potentially help a lot of people.
I came to see if we can be helped to our problem with the landlords, the charges, overcharge. And we came to talk with Robert, see if he can help us.
We're here because my aunt is having problems with her building and they're demanding private information from her, and my mom is getting treated very poorly at her job, and we're hoping that both of their owners get put out there and stopped what they're doing.
They do have a voice. They're not alone. That the church is here to assist, to help, that Catholic Migration Services will do what we can. But it's a partnership. We're not going to do it by ourselves. We work with people. We try to empower people. We try to make them aware of their rights and what they can do. And so you're going to see people coming together, and when you put the voices together, just like a choir, we become a great chorus trying to make change.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, a Catholic academy in Williamsburg addresses bullying head-on. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faubles. Thank you for watching and have a good night.